Daddy, the world went dark for you, but for us, it's been empty since Mommy went to heaven, Aurora said, crying, while Vincent, sitting on the porch, tried to remember the color of the sky he could no longer see. On the same day, he lost his sight. He lost the love of his life, and since then his children had lost their father. No one in that house knew how to smile anymore. What Vincent didn't expect was that the only person capable of saving his children from grief was precisely the sister of the woman he couldn't forget. This story will touch your heart and bring you to tears. Subscribe to the channel and comment. From what city you're listening, the sunset in Sedona, Arizona, painted the sky with fiery hues that Vincent Lombardi could no longer see. Seated on the porch of his sprawling estate, he kept his face turned towards the horizon out of sheer habit. His strong, well-manicured hands gripped the arms of the wooden rocking chair, while a gentle breeze ruffled his prematurely graying brown hair. At 42, the powerful CEO of Lombardi Tech, one of the largest tech companies in the US, had been living in a world of darkness for almost a year. "Dad, are you mad?" Aurora's hesitant, childlike voice broke the silence. Vincent turned his head in the direction of his daughter, unable to find her with the vacant gaze of his once cobalt blue eyes, now dull. "No, Princess. Why would I be?" Aurora Lombardi, 7 years old, with blonde hair and blue eyes identical to what her father had before the accident, cautiously approached. "Because Valentine broke Mommy's vase," she whispered, as if sharing a terrible secret. "He said he didn't do it, but I saw him." Vincent sighed deeply, feeling the weight of the responsibility he carried. How to explain to his daughter that a broken vase meant nothing compared to the irreparable loss they had suffered? How to make the children understand when he himself still couldn't process Isadora's absence? "Where's your brother now?" he asked, his voice controlled. "Hiding in his room. He thinks you're going to yell like last time." His daughter's words were like a stab. Vincent remembered the last time he had lost control. It had been 2 weeks ago, when the twins started fighting during dinner, a broken plate, screams and tears. Then, the oppressive silence that had hung over the house ever since. "Aurora, please call your brother. No one's going to yell today." The girl hesitated but obeyed. Minutes later, she returned with Valentine, who had trembling hands and unshed tears in his eyes. "Valentine, is it true that you broke the vase?" The boy swallowed hard, glancing quickly at his sister. "It was an accident, Dad," he admitted, his voice choked. "I just wanted to know if it still smelled like her." Vincent felt something break. Inside him, not anger, but a deep pain as he realized that his children were desperately searching for fragments of their departed mother. He stretched out his arms, trying to locate his son by the sound of his ragged breathing. "Come here," he asked softly. Valentine cautiously approached. Vincent wrapped him in an awkward hug, still not completely adapted to his condition. The boy remained stiff for a few seconds before melting into tears against his father's chest. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry." "It's okay, son. We'll find other ways to remember Mommy, okay?" Aurora timidly approached, and Vincent extended his other arm, including her in the embrace. For a brief moment, the man felt relief in the darkness that consumed him. But he knew it wasn't enough. His children needed more than he could offer. At the moment, that same night, after the children went to sleep, Vincent called Elisa Montenegro, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for over 20 years. "Elisa, I need you to contact Lorena Villela. I have her number on my cell phone." The housekeeper hesitated. "Ms. Isadora's sister. Are you sure, sir?" "Absolutely. The children need help. I need help." "And you think Ms. Lorena will want to come?" After everything, Vincent adjusted the sunglasses he wore even indoors, a habit he had adopted for the comfort of others, not his own. "I don't know, Elisa, but for Aurora and Valentin, I'm willing to try." In her office at St. Helens Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, Lorena Villela watched the city through the window while awaiting her next patient. At 35, she had built a solid reputation as a psychologist specializing in grief and childhood trauma. Her auburn hair, held in a discreet bun, contrasted with her fair skin and amber eyes that conveyed reassurance, elements of her welcoming presence that helped her patients open up. The phone on her desk rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Dr. Villela, there's a call from the Lombardi residence," her secretary informed her with a hesitant voice. Lorena's heart raced. It had been almost a year since she had had contact with her sister's family. Not by her own choice, but out of respect for the isolation that Vincent imposed on everyone after the accident. "You can transfer it." Elisa's voice sounded familiar on the phone, bringing back memories of family parties and Sunday afternoons. "At the Lombardi estate, Dr. Villela, good afternoon. Mr. Vincent would like to speak with you. Would that be possible?" Minutes later, Vincent's deep, tired voice echoed on the line. Lorena. A single name, loaded with unspoken meanings. Lorena closed her eyes, remembering the last time she had seen him, in the hospital, devastated by Isadora's death and the news that he would never see again. "Vincent, how are the children?" "Not well. That's why I'm calling." Vincent explained the situation bluntly. The children were emotionally withdrawn, had frequent nightmares and regressive behaviors. Aurora had started wetting the bed again, something that hadn't happened since she was 4. Valentin had outbursts of anger, followed by periods of absolute silence. Neither of them was adapting well at school. "I've tried everything, Lorena. I hired psychologists, but they refused to talk. Occupational therapists, private tutors. Nothing works. His voice faltered, slipping through my fingers. Lorena felt her throat tighten. She loved those children as if they were her own. She had been present in every important phase of their lives: birth, first steps, first words, until the accident. "What do you want from me, Vincent?" There was a moment of heavy silence before he answered. "I need you to come, for a while, to help them, to help us. I know it's a lot to ask after everything, but they trust you. Or at least they used to." Lorena felt the weight of that request. It would mean leaving her life in Phoenix, her office, her carefully built routine. And there was Serena, her 4-year-old adopted daughter, to whom she had promised stability. After rescuing her from a traumatic situation in the shelter where she volunteered, "I need to think about it, Vincent. It's not a simple decision. I understand. But please consider it. We need you." After hanging up, Lorena remained still, in her chair, looking at the photograph on her desk, her, Isadora, and the twins on a sunny afternoon, all smiling. It had been taken just 3 months before the accident. The fiery red of her hair contrasted with the platinum blonde of her sister, so different in appearance, so close at heart. "Dr. Villela." Her secretary's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Your next patient has arrived," and the daycare called. "Serena has a slight fever." Lorena nodded, putting the photograph in the drawer. "You have no obligation," she told herself. But deep down, she knew she had already made her decision. A week later, Lorena drove her car along the winding road that led to the Lombardi estate, located in an exclusive area of Sedona, Arizona. Serena slept peacefully in the back seat, surrounded by toys and books that Lorena had brought to make the transition easier for her daughter. "Mommy, are we there yet?" Serena's sleepy voice sounded as the car began to climb the avenue of flowering trees that led to the main entrance of the property. "Yes, my love, this will be our home for a while," Lorena replied, adjusting the rearview mirror to see her daughter's round face, framed by dark curls so different from her auburn hair. The Lombardi estate loomed imposingly on the horizon. Contemporary construction, with bold architectural lines and large glass windows that opened onto a panoramic view of the mountains. It was a place Lorena knew well, but that now seemed strangely different. Perhaps it was the absence of music or the slightly less well-kept garden than before. Elisa waited at the entrance with a serious expression that barely masked her relief at seeing Lorena. "Dr. Villela, I'm so glad you've arrived," said the housekeeper, approaching to help with the luggage. Her gaze softened as she saw Serena. And this must be little Serena. How she's grown. Lorena smiled, taking her daughter's hand. "Serena, do you remember Aunt Elisa?" The girl, still sleepy, shook her head negatively, partially hiding behind her mother's legs. "She's shy with strangers," explained Lorena, stroking her daughter's hair. "How is everyone, Elisa?" The housekeeper sighed, lowering her voice. "The children are still difficult, and the boss, well, he has better days and worse days. Today is not one of the better ones." Lorena nodded, understanding the message between the lines. She took a deep breath, preparing for what was to come. "Where are Aurora and Valentine?" "In their room. They didn't want to come down when they knew you were arriving." A pang in her chest, a first rejection. Lorena knew it would be like this. "And Vincent?" "In the office. He asked to be notified when you arrived." Lorena adjusted her purse on her shoulder, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had accepted. "Let's go see the children first, Serena and I. Then I'll talk to Vincent." Elisa guided them through the corridors of the estate. Each step brought painful and sweet memories, family dinners, birthdays, Christmases. Isadora in all of them. Radiant, the gravitational center that kept everyone together. Now there was only a void that no one knew how to fill. They stopped in front of a door decorated with colorful stickers of planets and stars. Lorena remembered that room well. She had helped her sister decorate it when the twins were born. "Aurora?" "Valentine?" Elisa called, knocking softly. "Aunt Lorena has arrived, and she brought a surprise." Silence. Then light steps on the other side of the door. "We don't want to see anyone." Valentine's voice, colder than Lorena remembered. Lorena signaled for Elisa to step aside. She knelt down, placing herself at Serena's height. "Remember what we talked about your cousins?" she asked gently. "They're very sad, because they lost their mommy, like you were sad when you came to our house. Do you think you can help me make them smile again?" Serena, whose own history of loss made her strangely wise for her age, nodded solemnly. "I can lend them my Lulu," she offered, showing the ragdoll she rarely left her side. "That would be very kind, my love." Lorena stood up and knocked gently on the door. "Aurora, Valentine, it's me, Aunt Lorena. I know you're upset, and you have every right to be. I won't force you to see me now, but my daughter Serena is here, and she brought a gift for you. When you're ready, we'll be in the living room." She didn't wait for an answer. She took Serena by the hand and headed towards the living room, feeling Elisa's worried gaze on her back. In the spacious living room, with its large windows and elegant furniture, Lorena helped Serena take some toys out of her backpack. The girl soon became distracted with colorful blocks, concentrating on building a structure on the carpet. It was then that she heard firm steps approaching. Vincent Lombardi entered the room, guiding himself with a cane he used with surprising dexterity. He wore dark dress pants and a meticulously ironed long-sleeved shirt, as if preparing for a business meeting, not to receive his sister-in-law. The sunglasses couldn't completely hide the lines of expression that had deepened around his eyes in the last year. "Lorena," he said, stopping in the center of the room, his head slightly tilted, as if trying to locate her position by the sound. "I'm here, Vincent," she replied, standing up, "near the window." He turned in the direction of her voice, and for a moment Lorena saw a vulnerability in his face that she had never noticed before. It was fleeting. In seconds, his expression returned to the mask of control, that she knew well. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice rougher than she remembered. "I know it wasn't an easy decision. The twins will always be part of my life, Vincent. And you, your family too." The words came out more loaded with emotion than she intended. Vincent seemed to notice, as his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Have you seen the children?" "Not yet. They refused to leave their room." Vincent nodded, as if he already expected that. "Give them time. They're—" He hesitated, searching for the words. "Hurting in ways I still can't fully understand." A small noise caught both of their attention. Serena had approached and was now looking curiously at Vincent. "Are you the blind uncle?" she asked with the brutal innocence of children. Lorena felt her face flush. "Serena, we don't talk to people like that." But to her surprise, the corner of Vincent's lips curved into what could be the beginning of a smile. "Yes, I'm the blind uncle," he replied, carefully bending down to get closer to the girl's height. "And you must be Serena. Your mother told me about you. Why do you wear glasses inside? Is it very sunny in here?" "Serena, that's enough," Lorena interjected, embarrassed. "It's okay," said Vincent, now with a more definite smile. "I wear glasses because my eyes don't work like yours anymore. Sometimes people get uncomfortable when they look at them." "Can I see?" Serena insisted, moved by genuine curiosity. Lorena was about to intervene again when Vincent, in a gesture that surprised her, slowly removed his sunglasses. His eyes, once a vibrant blue like his children's, now had a milky opacity that contrasted with the rest of his impeccable appearance. Serena watched attentively, without fear or repulsion. "They're pretty," she declared finally. "They look like the sky when it's going to rain." It was the first time in almost a year that Lorena saw Vincent Lombardi truly smile. At that moment they heard light steps coming from the hallway. Aurora and Valentine were standing at the entrance to the room, watching the scene with expressions that mixed curiosity and distrust. "Daddy's laughing," Aurora whispered to her brother, loud enough to be heard by everyone. Vincent quickly put his glasses back on, straightening his posture. "Aurora, Valentine, come meet Serena," he said, trying to sound casual, but the tension had returned to his voice. The twins didn't move. Their gazes were fixed not on their father, but on Lorena. There was something painful in those glances. Hurt, accusation, maybe even anger. "Hi, Aunt," Aurora finally said, her voice small and distant. "Are you going to live here now?" The question carried more meaning than its simple words suggested. Lorena felt the weight of the unspoken implications. "For a while," she replied calmly, "to help you and your father." "Our mother is not coming back," Valentine declared abruptly, his blue eyes identical to his father's before the accident flashing with contained emotion. "No one can replace her." The rawness of the statement hung in the air, heavy and painful. Vincent became visibly tense, his fingers tightening on the cane. "No one is trying to replace your mother, Valentine," said Lorena firmly, but without losing her gentleness. "No one could, even if they wanted to. Your mother was unique, and her place in our hearts is only hers." Valentine held her gaze for a few seconds before lowering his eyes, apparently satisfied with the answer. Aurora, in turn, took a small step forward, her curiosity momentarily overcoming her distrust. "Is she your daughter?" she asked, pointing to Serena, who was now partially hiding behind Lorena's legs. "Yes, this is Serena. She's 4 years old and was very excited to meet you." Serena, realizing they were talking about her, peeked out timidly. "Do you want to see my Lulu?" she offered, showing the rag doll. Aurora looked at the doll with reluctant interest, but it was Valentine who took the first step towards his cousin. His normally closed face had an expression of curiosity that painfully reminded Lorena of the cheerful boy he used to be. "She looks like the Stellinha that Mommy made for Aurora," he commented, referring to a similar doll that Isadora had sewn for her daughter. Stellina tore, Aurora said sadly. Daddy didn't know how to fix it. An embarrassed silence followed the statement, interrupted only when Serena, with the simplicity of a child, extended her Lulu to Aurora. You can play with her until yours gets better. The gesture, so simple and generous, visibly disarmed Aurora. The girl accepted the doll carefully, as if receiving a priceless treasure. Thank you, she whispered, a ghost of a smile forming on her lips. Autumn in Sedona brought chilly mornings and mild afternoons. 2 weeks had passed since Lorena and Serena's arrival at the Lombardi estate, and little by little a routine was beginning to take shape. That morning, Lorena watched the children playing in the yard from the kitchen window while she made coffee. Aurora, Valentin, and Serena were building an imaginary world with twigs, stones, and fallen leaves. In the distance, they looked like ordinary children, without the weight of the tragedies that each carried. They seem almost normal today, commented Elisa, joining her in the observation. Lorena smiled, her gaze fixed on the children. It's a process, Elisa. There are good days and bad days. It had been harder than Lorena had imagined. In the first few days, the twins alternated between ignoring her completely and testing her with challenging behaviors. Valentin even locked himself in his room for hours after Lorena suggested a play therapy session. Aurora destroyed one of the pillows in her room, scattering feathers everywhere when Lorena insisted that she should return to school. But there had also been small breakthroughs. Aurora had asked Lorena to braid her hair like Mommy used to do. Valentin, after refusing any contact for 3 days, had agreed to play chess with her. And Serena's role in all this had proved surprisingly important. Little Serena has a knack for disarming them, observed Elisa, as if reading Lorena's thoughts. I've never seen Valentin so patient with anyone. Children have their own language, replied Lorena. Serena understands their pain without needing explanations. What Lorena didn't tell anyone was that the nights continued to be a challenge. Aurora still had episodes of bedwetting, and Valentin suffered from nightmares that left him screaming in the middle of the night. Frequently, Lorena slept few hours, divided between comforting her nephews and taking care of Serena, who was also adapting to a new environment. How is the boss? Asked Elisa as she meticulously set the breakfast table. Lorena sighed. Vincent was, perhaps, the biggest challenge of all. He remained distant, locked in his office for hours, working remotely despite his blindness. Although he had assistants and adaptive technologies, he insisted on personally supervising. Lombardi Tech's business. The few conversations they had were strained, focused exclusively on the children. He's still processing a lot, Elisa. The housekeeper nodded, understanding. Every day I see him trying, getting up, dressing impeccably as before, trying to maintain some normalcy. But it's as if he lost not only his sight, but also himself in that accident. Lorena knew exactly what Elisa meant. The Vincent she had known, confident, charismatic, full of life, seemed to have died along with Isadora. In his place, there was a withdrawn man, full of guilt and barely contained anger. The sound of raised voices interrupted her thoughts. Through the window she saw Valentin fall to the ground while Aurora yelled at him. Serena watched the scene perplexed. "I'll go," said Lorena, placing her cup on the counter. Arriving in the yard, she found Valentin with his face contorted with anger, holding his wrist tightly. "What happened here?" she asked, kneeling beside her nephew. "He said that Mommy was never coming back because she doesn't like us anymore," accused Aurora, her blue eyes full of tears. "I only pushed him a little." Valentin pulled away when Lorena tried to examine his wrist. "She pushed me hard, and I fell on the rock," he said, his voice breaking. "And I only told the truth. Mommy's gone and she's not coming back." Lorena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of that statement. Come on, let's take care of that hurt first, she said firmly, extending her hand to Valentine. Aurora, please. Take Serena inside and wash your hands for breakfast. But Now, Aurora, interrupted Lorena, her tone not admitting discussion. Aurora gave her brother a hurt look before taking Serena's hand and heading towards the house. Only when the girls were far enough away did Lorena turn her attention to Valentine, who was now letting the tears flow freely. "Can I see your wrist?" He reluctantly extended his arm. There was a nasty scratch, but nothing serious. "Let's clean this up, and then we'll talk, okay?" In the downstairs bathroom, while cleaning the wound with water and antiseptic, Lorena observed. Her nephew, his eyes, so similar to his father's, were distant, lost in thoughts too heavy for a 7-year-old. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. "Not much. Valentine, what you said to your sister. Why do you think your mother didn't like you anymore?" The boy looked away, fixing his gaze on the marble floor. "Because she left. She left us. If she liked us, she would have stayed." Lorena felt her heart clench. She put a small bandage over the scratch before sitting on the stool next to the sink, getting to her nephew's eye level. "Valentine, your mother didn't choose to leave. It was an accident, remember? She would never leave you if she could choose. But she knew it was going to rain hard that day. Daddy told her not to drive, and she went anyway," exploded the boy, with an anger that surprised Lorena. So that was it. Valentine was holding not only pain, but also anger at his mother for putting herself at risk. "Sometimes the people we love make decisions that we don't understand, Valentine. But that doesn't mean they don't love us." "Daddy almost left too," murmured the boy, now with his voice almost inaudible. "He stayed sleeping at the hospital for a long time. I thought he was going to die too." Lorena resisted the urge to hug him, knowing that he would reject physical contact at that moment. But he didn't. "He's here. Different. Hurt. But here." "He doesn't want to be here," retorted Valentine, with a painful awareness for his age. "He wanted to go with Mommy." Those words hit Lorena like a punch, because on some level she knew they were true. Vincent had survived physically, but part of him had died in that accident, and the children, with the acute perception of little, ones felt it every day. Before she could answer, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Vincent appeared at the bathroom door, looking uneasy. "What happened?" "Lisa said there was a fight," he asked, his voice tense. Valentine immediately withdrew, closing off the expression that moments before had been open and vulnerable. "Nothing important," replied Lorena, noticing the change in her nephew. "Just a disagreement between siblings. We're already taking care of it." Vincent remained standing at the door, his face turned in the general direction of the voices, but without really focusing on them. The cane he used to guide himself was clenched in his hand with unnecessary force, revealing his inattention. "Valentine, are you okay?" he asked directly to his son. "I'm fine," replied the boy dryly. An uncomfortable silence followed. Vincent seemed to want to say something else, but hesitated, trapped in his own darkness. "Breakfast is ready," he said, finally. "Don't be long," and he left, his measured steps echoing through the hallway. Lorena watched Valentine, who kept his eyes fixed on the spot where his father had been. "He didn't even ask what really happened," whispered the boy, the hurt evident in his voice. "He never asks." The afternoon brought rain, confining everyone to the estate. Lorena took advantage of the time for an impromptu art therapy session with the twins, something she had been trying to implement since her arrival. At the living room table, sheets of paper, paints, brushes, and modeling clay were spread out. "Today, we're going to do something different," she explained, while organizing the materials. "I want each of you to choose a color that represents how you're feeling now, and then create something using mainly that color." Aurora chose a deep blue, almost indigo. Valentine hesitated between black and red, eventually choosing the latter. Serena, participating enthusiastically, picked a vibrant yellow. While the children focused on their creations, Lorena heard the sound of Vincent's office door opening. Moments later, he appeared at the entrance to the room, drawn by the cheerful voices of the children. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice lighter than usual. "We're drawing how we feel, Daddy," replied Aurora, surprisingly enthusiastic. "I chose blue." "And you, Valentine?" "Red," replied the boy without elaborating. Vincent nodded as if that made sense to him. Can I stay here with you?" he asked, a rare vulnerability in his voice. Lorena noticed the children exchanging surprised glances. Normally, Vincent kept himself away from family activities, preferring the isolation of his office. "Of course," replied Lorena softly. "In fact, why don't you participate too?" It was Vincent's turn to look surprised. I can't draw, Lorena. But you can model with clay," she suggested. "Touch is a powerful sense." Hesitantly, Vincent allowed himself to be guided by Lorena to a chair at the table. She placed a block of clay in his hands. "What color is this?" he asked, manipulating the material. "What color do you think it is?" returned Lorena. Vincent smiled slightly. "Isadora did that all the time. Answer a question with another question." Isadora's name, rarely mentioned, hung in the air like a presence. The children were momentarily quiet, watching their father. "It's light blue," said Aurora finally. "Like the sky." Vincent nodded, his fingers beginning to work the clay tentatively. "Blue is good," he murmured, more to himself than to the others. For almost an hour, a comfortable silence enveloped the family. Aurora created an ocean on her paper, with waves that seemed to swallow small boats. Valentine drew what appeared to be a forest in flames. Serena made a smiling sun with flowers around it. And Vincent, with increasing confidence, modeled what appeared to be a face. "I'm finished," announced Aurora, showing her drawing to everyone. "Me too," said Valentine. "Now comes the second part," explained Lorena. "Let's talk about what we created, and why we chose those colors." Aurora was the first, explaining that her blue ocean reminded her of vacations at the beach with her mother. Valentine, reluctantly, admitted that red represented the anger he felt about everything. Serena, with the simplicity of her 4 years, said that yellow made her happy, because it's the color of the sun and pineapple popsicles. When it was Vincent's turn, he hesitated, his fingers still working on the final details of his creation. "I don't know how to explain why I chose blue," he said finally. "Maybe because," his voice faltered slightly, "because it was the color of her eyes, of all your eyes." Aurora and Valentine looked at their father with an intensity that made Lorena's heart clench. "What did you make, Daddy?" asked Aurora, leaning in to see better. Vincent extended his hands, revealing what he had created, a stylized female face with delicate features. "It's Mommy," whispered Valentine, his voice strangely reverent. Vincent nodded, his fingers caressing the contours he had molded without being able to see. "It's how I see her now," he said simply. Lorena watched, with a heavy heart, the first time. Vincent spoke openly about Isadora in front of the children. Aurora approached her father, touching the sculpture carefully. "It looks like her," said the girl, resting her head against her father's shoulder. To everyone's surprise, Valentine also approached, standing on the other side of his father. For a moment, the three remained like that, united by that small representation of the woman they had lost. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the phone. Elisa appeared at the door, seeming reluctant to break that rare moment of peace. "Mr. Lombardi, it's Mr. Mendonça from the company. He says it's urgent." Vincent's expression closed instantly. The businessman took the place of the father, the vulnerable widower. "I'll take it now," he said, getting up carefully. With a hesitant movement, he handed the small sculpture to Aurora. "Keep it safe for me, okay?" As Vincent left, Lorena noticed the disappointment in her nephew's eyes. For a brief moment, they had glimpsed the father they knew before the accident, only to lose him again to the work that seemed to be his only refuge. The night brought with it a storm. Lightning illuminated the skies of Sedona, and thunder made the estate tremble. Lorena had just put Serena to sleep when she heard the scream. She ran down the hallway to the twins' room. Aurora was sitting in bed, her face wet with tears, her pajamas and sheets soaked. "I didn't mean to," sobbed the girl upon seeing Lorena. "It was the noise. It scared me." "It's okay, honey," whispered Lorena, already helping her up. Valentine watched. From the bed next door, his wide eyes reflecting every flash that came through the window. "It's like that night," he said, his voice trembling, "the night of the accident." Lorena felt a chill. It was true. The night of the accident that killed Isadora and blinded Vincent had also been marked by a similar storm. "Come on, Valentine. Let's all go to my room while I change Aurora's clothes." On the way down the hall, they found Vincent, who had rushed out of his room upon hearing the scream. "What happened?" he asked, alarmed, groping the air as if he could find them by pure instinct. "Aurora had a little accident, and the storm is scaring the children," explained Lorena, her calm voice contrasting with the tension of the moment. "We're going to my room to change her clothes." Vincent seemed to hesitate, clearly uncomfortable. "Do you want me to? Can I help with anything?" The offer, although awkward, surprised Lorena. It was the first time Vincent had offered to help with the direct care of the children since her arrival. "Actually, yes. Could you check if Serena is okay? Her room is next to mine." Vincent nodded, carefully heading in the direction indicated. Lorena led Aurora and Valentine to her room, finding clean clothes for her niece and helping her get changed. "Aunt Lorena," called Valentine while she was finishing dressing Aurora, "why doesn't Daddy like us anymore?" The question hit Lorena like a lightning bolt. She sat on the edge of the bed, drawing both nephews close. "Your father loves you more than anything, Valentine. He's just lost." "He doesn't even look at us," insisted the boy. "He can't look at anyone, silly," retorted Aurora, although without the usual hostility. "You know what I meant," replied Valentine. Before he laughed, he played. Now he only works and is sad. Lorena knew that she couldn't offer superficial answers to that deep pain. "When we lose someone we love very much, sometimes it seems like a part of us goes with them," she explained carefully. "Your father lost your mother, who was the love of his life, and he also lost his sight, which was how he saw the world. It's a lot of loss at once." "We lost Mommy too," whispered Aurora. "And we're sad, but we haven't stopped loving him." "I know, honey, and he knows that too deep down. But sometimes adults get lost in their own pain and forget how to come back." A particularly loud thunderclap made all three of them jump. Lorena hugged her nephews protectively. "You know what I do when I'm scared?" she asked, trying to distract them. Both shook their heads negatively. "I tell stories. Stories about good things, things that make me happy." "Tell a story about Mommy," asked Aurora, her eyes pleading. Lorena took a deep breath, talking about Isadora. Still hurt, but perhaps it was exactly what the children needed. "Do you know how your mother and father met?" The two shook their heads again. "It was in college. I was in my first year of psychology, and Isadora in her third year of architecture. Vincent was a young entrepreneur who went to give a lecture on technology. Isadora was in the audience and asked a question that left your father speechless." Lorena smiled at the memory. "She was always like that, challenging, brilliant." "What did she ask?" Valentine wanted to know, clearly intrigued. She questioned whether the technology he developed really improved people's lives or just made them more dependent. Your father was so impressed that he later looked for her to continue the conversation. A month later, they were dating. Aurora smiled, snuggling closer. "Mommy was very smart, wasn't she? Very. And brave too. I remember when she decided she wanted to climb Pike's Peak, even though she was afraid of heights. Your father went with her, of course. The two came back exhausted but radiant. Your mother said she never felt so alive as she did that day. I wish I could remember more things about her, said Valentin sadly. You remember more than you imagine, replied Lorena. It's all stored here. And she touched her nephew's chest lightly over his heart. And whenever you want to remember more, you can ask me. I knew your mother better than anyone. The door to the room opened gently, revealing Vincent with Serena in his arms. The girl, awakened by the storm, clung to his neck, apparently comfortable in his embrace. She woke up scared, explained Vincent, looking strangely at ease in his role as a child-bearer. I thought it best to bring her. You did well, replied Lorena, surprised by the image before her. Uncle Vincent told me it's just an angry cloud. Making noise, Serena informed them seriously. But it will pass. Lorena couldn't help but smile at the simplified explanation that Vincent had offered the girl. And he's right. Everything passes, eventually. What are you doing? Asked Vincent, still standing near the door, as if he didn't know if he was welcome to come further in. Telling stories to scare away the fear, replied Aurora. Aunt Lorena was talking about when you and Mommy met. Vincent's face contracted, momentarily, but to Lorena's surprise, he didn't close off as expected. She was talking about how your mother left me speechless at my own lecture. Yes! Exclaimed Valentin, excited by his father's unexpected participation. Tell us more. Hesitantly, Vincent approached, letting Lorena guide him to sit on the edge of the bed. Serena settled comfortably in his lap, as if it were the most natural place in the world. Well, your mother was the most brilliant person I'd ever met, he began, his voice taking on a softer tone than usual. That day she was wearing a blue dress and had her hair up, unlike your aunt who always wore her hair down. Lorena was surprised by the observation. She hadn't expected Vincent to remember details like that, and she wasn't impressed with me, which was refreshing, he continued, a slight smile appearing on his lips. Everyone in that room was trying to please me, except her. Isadora wanted real answers. For almost an hour, the storm was forgotten as Vincent shared stories about Isadora that even Lorena didn't know. Intimate moments of the couple, dreams. They had planned together, small traditions they maintained. The children listened fascinated, absorbing each word like a precious treasure. At some point, Lorena noticed that Serena had fallen asleep in Vincent's lap, and the twins were also struggling against sleep. I think we managed to scare away the fear, she observed softly. Maybe it's time for everyone to go back to their beds. Can I sleep here? Asked Aurora timidly. Just for today? Lorena looked at Vincent, seeking his opinion. To her surprise, it was he who answered, Why don't we all sleep in the living room? We can have a camp-out like we used to do. The suggestion caught Lorena off guard. It was the first genuinely paternal initiative that Vincent had taken since her arrival. That's a great idea, she agreed quickly. Let's go get blankets and pillows. Minutes later, the spacious living room was transformed into an improvised campsite. Mattresses, blankets, and pillows scattered across the floor, forming a large communal bed. The children lay down in the center, with Lorena and Vincent positioned at the ends, like guardians. In the dark, with only the occasional light of the lightning illuminating the room, Lorena observed that fragmented family, momentarily united by the storm. Vincent, lying on the other side, had a serene expression that she hadn't seen in a long time. Lorena, he called softly when the children were already asleep. Yes? Thank you for being here, for doing what I haven't been able to do. The sincerity in his voice caused a strange stirring in Lorena's chest. They're part of me too, Vincent, part of her. I know, he replied, his voice almost a whisper. That's why it hurts so much to look at you sometimes. You have so much of her in you. The confession caught Lorena off guard. In all the years she had known Vincent, he had never been so openly vulnerable. We were different in almost everything. She said, remembering her sister, she was sunny, expansive. I've always been more contained, more profound, completed Vincent, like a calm river, but carrying a strong current below the surface. That's how Isadora always described you. Lorena felt tears forming, grateful for the darkness that concealed them. I miss her every day. Me too, admitted Vincent, his voice breaking slightly. But today was the first time I was able to remember her without feeling like I was drowning. The silence that followed was not heavy like the previous ones, but contemplative. The storm outside was beginning to subside, as was perhaps the storm within that house. "Good night, Lorena," said Vincent finally. "Good night, Vincent." Lying in the dark, surrounded by the makeshift family they were trying to rebuild, Lorena allowed herself, for the first time, to feel something beyond duty and compassion, something that shouldn't be there, but was being born nonetheless. A warmth in her chest, a tremor in her hands when she thought of the man lying a few feet away, a feeling that scared her and at the same time awakened her from a long emotional torpor. The storm had passed, but its effects would remain for a long time. The days that followed brought a subtle but noticeable change in the dynamics of the house. Vincent began to involve himself more in the children's routines. He asked about their activities, participated in meals, even tried to help Valentine with his homework, using audio resources on his adapted tablet. Lorena observed this transformation with a mixture of joy and apprehension. Joy at seeing the twins finally reconnecting with their father. Apprehension at the contradictory feelings that grew within her. On a particularly pleasant afternoon, while the children played in the yard under Elisa's supervision, Lorena found Vincent in the library. He was sitting near the window listening to an audiobook through headphones. Upon noticing her presence, he removed the headphones. "Lorena, how did you know it was me?" she asked, surprised. A slight smile appeared on his lips. "Your perfume, lemongrass and something floral, jasmine, perhaps?" Lorena felt her face flush. She hadn't expected him to pay attention to such intimate details. "It's an essence I make with natural oils," she explained, sitting in the opposite armchair. "What are you listening to?" "Blindness by José Saramago," he replied with irony. "Cliché, I know. Título original mantido por ser amplamente conocido." "Actually, it seems appropriate." A comfortable silence settled between them. Through the window, they could hear the children's laughter in the yard. "They're improving," commented Vincent. "Yesterday, Valentine asked me to show him how my screen reader worked. He was fascinated. And Aurora finally agreed to go back to school next week," added Lorena. "They're small steps, but significant." Vincent nodded, his face taking on a more serious expression. "All thanks to you. I am so lost, Lorena. Without you, I don't know what would have become of us." "You would have found a way eventually," she replied, uncomfortable with the praise. "You're stronger than you think, Vincent." He laughed, a bitter sound. "Strong? I break a little more each day, trying to pretend I'm still the same man. The man Isadora loved, the man my children admired." "Strength isn't in staying the same," said Lorena softly. "It's in finding who you can be now." Vincent turned his face towards the window, as if he could see the world outside. "You know what's hardest?" Vincent paused, as if searching for the right words. "Not being able to see their faces, not knowing if Aurora still wrinkles her nose when she's confused, like she used to. Not being able to keep up with how Valentine is growing. Sometimes I'm afraid of forgetting what they look like." The confession hit Lorena like a blow. It was a fear she had never considered, so focused was she on the children's emotional needs. "Do you want me to describe what they look like now?" she offered, moved by impulse. Vincent turned to face her, surprised. "Would you do that?" "Of course," she replied, moving closer to sit beside him. Aurora's hair is longer, almost to her waist now. She has a rebellious strand that falls over her right eye, exactly like Isadora had. And yes, she still wrinkles. Her nose when she's confused. A soft smile formed on Vincent's lips, and Valentine, he's a few inches taller. His face is losing that baby roundness, becoming more angular. He looks more like you every day, especially when he's focused. She paused. "He has your expressions, you know, that way of tightening his lips when he's thinking." Vincent nodded, absorbing each word. "And his voice? Is his voice changing?" "A little deeper, yes. Not much yet. He's only 7 years old. But it's less childish." For a long moment they were silent. Vincent hesitantly raised his hand, as if wanting to reach something. "Can I?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. Lorena didn't immediately understand what he was asking, until his hand was suspended in the air between them. "What?" "I want to see you," he explained. "With my fingers, if you'll let me. It's how I've learned to recognize objects now. Faces are more difficult, more intimate." Lorena felt her heart race. The request was innocent, purely functional, but still intensely personal. "Sure," she replied, leaning slightly towards him. Vincent's hands found her face with surprising softness. Long, calloused fingers traced the outline of her jaw, climbed up her cheekbones, slid over the curve of her eyebrows. It was a methodical exploration, almost clinical, but Lorena couldn't ignore the shivers that ran down her skin. "You and Isadora have had the same features," he commented, as his fingers ran down the line of Lorena's nose. "But there are subtle differences. Your face is more angular, hers was more rounded." Lorena closed her eyes, letting herself be enveloped by that strange and intimate moment. "People always thought we were very different," she murmured. "You were," confirmed Vincent, his fingers now tracing the contour of her lips with extreme delicacy. "But there was a deep connection between you, something beyond appearance." When his fingers pushed a strand of hair away from Lorena's face, she couldn't contain a small sigh. Vincent froze, as if suddenly conscious of the intimacy of the moment. "Your hair," he said, his voice rougher. "It's very different from hers, more thick. The texture." He left the sentence incomplete, his fingers still intertwined in Lorena's auburn hair. For an instant time seemed to have stopped. There was only his touch, her breathing, and something indefinable growing between them. "Vincent, Daddy! Aunt Lorena! Come see what we did!" Aurora's voice, coming from the yard, broke the moment. Vincent pulled his hand back quickly, as if he had been caught committing a crime. "We should go," he said, getting up with some stiffness. "Yes, of course," agreed Lorena, trying to ignore the whirlwind of emotions she felt. On the way to the yard, walking side by side without touching, Lorena realized that something fundamental had changed between them. An invisible line had been crossed, and there was no going back. The subject of the charity gala came up a week later. Vincent had received the invitation to a fundraising event for the children's wing of the hospital where Lorena used to work. "In Phoenix, I'm not going," he declared during dinner. "I can make a substantial donation, but going in person is out of the question." "It's an important cause," argued Lorena. "Your presence would give visibility to the project." "My presence?" Vincent laughed without humor. "A blind man trying not to spill his champagne glass? No, thank you." "Did you fall when you went to my room last night?" Serena asked innocently, looking at Vincent curiously. "No, little one," he replied, softening his voice as he always did when talking to the girl. "Then why can't you go to a party? Mommy says that when we're afraid we have to face it, like I was afraid of the dark, remember?" Vincent seemed momentarily speechless. Lorena observed, fascinated, how a 4-year-old had managed to dismantle his defenses with a simple question. "It's different, Serena," he tried to explain. "Why?" Because Vincent hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Because adults are more complicated, interjected Aurora, surprising everyone. Daddy's afraid people will stare at him. Vincent turned to face his daughter, his face a mixture of surprise and recognition. It's more or less that, yes. But it's silly, continued the girl, with the brutal frankness of children. Mommy always said we shouldn't care what other people think. A heavy silence followed the mention of Isadora. Vincent seemed to be processing his daughter's words, his face a mask of contradictory emotions. You could go with Aunt Lorena, suggested Valentin, unexpectedly entering the conversation. She can help you if you get lost. Lorena felt her heart race. The idea of accompanying Vincent to a social event, of being publicly by his side, seemed strangely significant. I don't know, replied Vincent, visibly uncomfortable. We could go for just an hour, suggested Lorena, keeping her tone light. Show support for the cause, greet some people and come back. The children would be fine with Elisa. We can stay alone, protested Valentin. We're not babies anymore. I'm 4 years old. I'm not a baby, agreed Serena solemnly, causing smiles. Around the table, Vincent remained silent for a long moment. 1 hour, he said finally. No more than that. On the night of the event, the tension was palpable. Vincent adjusted his tie for the 10th time, although it was already perfectly aligned. Dressed in an elegant black suit that accentuated his imposing figure, he seemed both powerful and vulnerable. You look great, assured Lorena, entering his room after a light knock on the door. Vincent turned towards her voice. For a moment, he seemed to have lost his words. And you, he asked finally, how do you look? Lorena looked at her own reflection in the room's mirror. The emerald green dress she had chosen was elegant, without being overly formal, accentuating her silhouette and contrasting harmoniously with her auburn hair, styled in a sleek updo. I'm wearing green, she described, a dark shade almost like the leaves of pine trees, hair up, small pearl earrings that Isadora gave me on my 30th birthday. The mention of her sister didn't bring the usual tension. Instead, Vincent nodded softly. She had good taste. She always said that green matched your eyes. The children were waiting in the living room, eager to see the adults dressed up for the party. You look like a princess, Mommy, exclaimed Serena upon seeing her. And Daddy looks like a prince, added Aurora, looking admiringly at her father. Vincent smiled, warmed by his daughter's enthusiasm. I'll try not to embarrass you, he joked, although Lorena could detect the real insecurity behind the good-humored facade. When the car that would take them to the event arrived, Vincent hesitated momentarily before grabbing his usual set, sunglasses and cane. Are you sure you want to do this? Asked Lorena softly, away from the children's ears. No, he admitted with a tense smile. But Aurora is right. Isadora wouldn't approve of my isolation. Besides, he paused as if measuring his words. Besides, it's important to you. The event was held at a luxury hotel in downtown Sedona. Right at the entrance, they realized that the presence of Vincent Lombardi caused a stir. The businessman, who had practically disappeared from public life after the accident, was now returning, and he wasn't alone. Looks and whispers followed them wherever they went. Lorena could feel Vincent's growing tension by the way his arm, linked to hers, became increasingly rigid. Everyone's staring, he muttered through his teeth. Let them stare, replied Lorena firmly. You're Vincent Lombardi. You've always attracted attention, even before. He smiled slightly, seeming to gain confidence with her words. As the night progressed, Vincent gradually relaxed. His natural ease in social environments began to reappear, even with the limitations imposed by his blindness. He spoke eloquently about the importance of the project, about how supporting children in vulnerable situations was a cause that touched his heart. However, not everything went smoothly. During a moment when Lorena briefly stepped away to greet a colleague, Vincent was approached by Gustavo Mendonça, one of his partners in the company. "Vincent, what a surprise to see you here," commented Gustavo, his voice carrying a cordiality that didn't reach his eyes. "And with your sister-in-law, interesting choice of companion." The insinuating tone didn't go unnoticed by Vincent. "Lorena is one of the leading psychologists involved in the project," he replied dryly. "And she has been instrumental in my children's recovery." Of course, agreed Gustavo without losing his tone. "I just noticed how you two seemed close. People are talking, you know." "People always talk, Gustavo," retorted Vincent, his voice hardening. "Rarely about something that really matters." When Lorena returned, she immediately noticed the change in Vincent's mood. "Did something happen?" she asked discreetly. "Nothing important," he replied, although his expression contradicted his words. "I think we've already fulfilled our social quota for the night." On the way back, the silence in the car was heavy. Vincent seemed lost in thought, his posture rigid. "It was Gustavo, wasn't it?" Lorena asked finally. "I saw you talking." Vincent hesitated before answering. He implied that our arrangement is causing a stir. "Our arrangement?" she repeated, confused. "You, in my house, with me," he explained, his jaw tight. "Apparently, the wagging tongues of Sedona consider it inappropriate, or at the very least, suspicious." Lorena felt her stomach sink. It wasn't something she hadn't considered, but hearing that it was already the subject of gossip hurt more than she expected. "I understand," she said finally. "If it bothers you, I can—" "No," interrupted Vincent, his voice surprisingly firm. "I don't care what they think. I care about you, about the children, about what's best for our family." The word family hung between them, loaded with ambiguous meanings. "Vincent," began Lorena carefully, "we need to be careful. As much as we want to ignore it, there are certain expectations, boundaries." "Boundaries," he repeated almost bitterly. "Yes, there are always boundaries, aren't there? Things we shouldn't feel, thoughts we shouldn't have." Lorena's heart raced. They were approaching dangerously close to uncharted territory, a conversation that had been postponed for weeks. "What are you saying?" Vincent took a deep breath before answering. "I'm saying that I don't know what the boundaries are anymore. Lorena, I don't know what's right or wrong in this situation. I only know that—" He hesitated, searching for the words, "that for the first time since the accident I don't feel completely lost, and that's because of you." The confession hung between them, heavy and unexpected. Lorena felt a whirlwind of contradictory emotions. Joy, guilt, fear, hope. "Vincent, You don't have to say anything," he interrupted softly. "I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know." The rest of the drive passed in silence, but it was no longer a tense silence. It was the silence of two people who had finally recognized the truth that was growing between them, even without giving it a name. Arriving at the estate, they found the children asleep in the living room, surrounded by board games and books. Elisa explained that they had insisted on waiting for the adults to return, but sleep had won. "I'll take Serena," whispered Lorena, picking up her sleeping daughter in her arms. "And I'll take care of the twins," said Vincent, approaching cautiously, so as not to trip over the scattered toys. "I can help, sir," offered Elisa. "No, it's okay," he refused. "I want to do this." With surprising dexterity, Vincent located Valentine by the sound of his breathing, lifting him carefully. The boy barely moved, settling instinctively against his father's chest. Aurora, however, woke slightly when Elisa tried to pick her up. "Daddy?" she called sleepily. "I'm here, princess," replied Vincent, already with Valentine in his arms. "Elisa will take you to bed, and I'll be there to say goodnight." Aurora nodded, closing her eyes again. As they climbed the stairs, Lorena watched Vincent carrying his son with a confidence he hadn't shown weeks ago. It was as if, gradually, he was relearning how to be a father, redefining his relationship with the children under new circumstances. After putting Serena to bed and making sure she was comfortable, Lorena headed to her own room. In the hallway, she found Vincent coming out of the twins' room. "Are they sleeping?" she asked in a low voice. "Soundly," he replied, a soft smile on his lips. It was a good day for them. For a moment, they stood there, stopped in the dark hallway, too close for comfort, too far for what their hearts wanted. "Good night, Vincent," said Lorena finally, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Good night, Lorena." But as she turned to enter her room, she felt his fingers touch her wrist lightly. "Thank you," he said, his voice charged with emotion. "For today, for everything." Lorena nodded, even knowing that he couldn't see the gesture. "You're welcome." That night, both remained awake for a long time, contemplating the new feelings that blossomed where before there had only been pain, and the complications that would inevitably arise with them. The first sign that the comments had spread came in the form of a phone call. Vincent was in his office when Elisa entered with a worried expression. "Mr. Lombardi, it's Ms. Helena Lombardi on the line, your mother." The tension was immediate. Helena Lombardi rarely called, preferring to keep her distance after her son's accident. "I can't stand to see him like this," she had confided to Elisa once. "Vincent, is it true what they're saying?" Helena's aristocratic voice came loaded with accusation. "That Isadora's sister is living with you? That you were seen together publicly?" "Good morning to you too, Mother," he replied with contained irony. "And yes, Lorena is here helping with the children, as she should be doing. My son, don't be naive. People talk. They say it was very convenient for her to show up now that you're vulnerable." Vincent gripped the phone tightly. "Convenient? I practically begged her to come. The children needed her. The children need stability, not confusion. What will they think when they grow up and find out that you replaced their mother so quickly?" "No one is replacing anyone," Vincent's voice rose. "Lorena is family. Isadora loved her. The children love her." "And you, Vincent?" came the sharp question. "What do you feel?" The question hung in the air, heavy. Vincent felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. "I'm not going to discuss this with you, Mother, especially not on the phone." When he hung up, Vincent sensed someone's presence at the door. He didn't need to see to know it was Lorena. The soft scent of lemongrass and jasmine betrayed her. "How much did you hear?" he asked, resigned. "Enough," she replied, her voice controlled. "The comments are spreading, aren't they?" "Apparently." A heavy silence settled between them. "Vincent, maybe it's best if I go back to Phoenix. The children are already better and—" "No," he interrupted firmly. "I'm not going to let malicious gossip destroy what we've built here. The children need you. He didn't complete the sentence, but it wasn't necessary. Both knew what was left unsaid. "There's something else," said Lorena after a moment. "This morning, while cleaning the twins' room, I found something." She approached, guiding his hand to a folded piece of paper. Vincent felt the marks of crayon under his fingers. "It's a drawing?" "Yes. Aurora drew all of us. You, me, her, Valentine, and Serena. And in the sky, among the clouds, Isadora." Vincent felt a lump in his throat. "There's a sentence written," continued Lorena, her voice choked. "New family." The words hit Vincent like a lightning bolt. New family. So simple, so complex, so loaded with meaning. "What do we do now?" he asked, feeling simultaneously terrified and relieved. Lorena took a deep breath. "I think we need to talk to them, with everyone, and mostly with Isadora." The plan came naturally. A ceremony in memory of Isadora, not a sad event, but a celebration of her life and legacy. a way to honor her and, in a way, ask for her permission to move forward. When they proposed the idea to the children, the reactions were unexpected. "Can we tell stories about Mommy?" asked Aurora, her eyes shining. "And can we make a cake?" She loved raspberry cake, remembered Valentin. "And can I wear my new pink dress?" Wanted to know Serena, not wanting to be left out. Lorena and Vincent exchanged glances. Or rather, Lorena looked at Vincent, and he seemed to sense her expression. "Yes to everything," he replied, a genuine smile illuminating his face. "We're going to celebrate Mommy the way she would have wanted." Preparations began immediately. Elisa helped decorate the garden with Isadora's favorite flowers, lavender and sunflowers. The twins selected photographs to display. Vincent chose the songs that formed the soundtrack to their story. The eve of the ceremony, however, brought a whirlwind of unexpected emotions. Lorena found Vincent sitting alone on the porch, his face turned towards the night sky he could no longer see. "I think I made a mistake," he said when he felt her approach. "What mistake?" "I thought I could move on. That I could allow myself to feel what I feel for you without betraying her memory." Lorena sat beside him, her heart beating painfully. "And now you think you can't." "Now I understand that I'll never have permission," he replied bitterly. "Not from society, not from my family. Maybe not even from my children when they're older." Lorena felt the pain in his words as if they were physical, but before she could answer, a small voice interrupted. "Is Daddy sad again?" It was Aurora, standing in the doorway of the porch in her white pajamas, her blonde hair loose, framing a face so similar to her mother's. Vincent adjusted himself in the chair, forcing a smile. "No, Princess. Just thinking." The girl approached, studying her father's face intently. "Is it about Mommy?" she asked directly. "Or about Aunt Lorena?" The question, asked with the brutal innocence of children, left the adults momentarily speechless. "Why do you ask that?" managed Vincent finally. Aurora sighed, as if the adults were too slow to understand the obvious. "Because you look at Aunt Lorena the same way you looked at Mommy, not with your eyes, but with your whole face." The perceptive observation of the 7-year-old hit Vincent like a physical blow. "Aurora," he began, not knowing how to continue. "It's okay, Daddy. Mommy said that the heart is big and there's room for a lot of people. I just don't want you to be sad again." Lorena felt tears forming in her eyes. "And Aunt Lorena?" asked Vincent softly. "How would you feel if she stayed longer with us?" Aurora reflected for a moment, her little face serious. "I like it when you smile, Daddy, and you smile more since she's been here." With that, the girl gave her father a kiss on the cheek, another on Lorena's, and went back inside, leaving the adults deeply shaken by the pure wisdom of that child. The morning of the ceremony brought a radiant sun, as if the sky itself wanted to participate in the celebration. The garden of the Lombardi estate was transformed. Photographs of Isadora in happy moments, colorful ribbons dancing in the wind, flowers perfuming the air. The guests, few and selected, arrived bringing stories and memories. Isadora's co-workers, some close family friends, 2 or 3 relatives who still kept in touch. Notably absent was Helena Lombardi, who had refused to participate in what she called a farce. But none of that diminished the beauty of the moment. The children, dressed in their best clothes, received the guests with a touching dignity. Vincent, guided by Lorena, greeted everyone with a new serenity. The ceremony itself was simple and deeply touching. They formed a circle in the garden, where each person shared a memory or lesson learned from Isadora. When it was Vincent's turn, the silence was absolute. He stood up without a cane, seeming for the first time completely at ease in his darkness. "Isadora taught me that seeing isn't just seeing with your eyes, it's feeling with your heart, perceiving with your soul." In the darkness that followed her departure, I got lost. I forgot how to see the world through love, as she had taught me. His voice, firm and emotional, reached everyone. But thanks to our children, and thanks to Lorena, I'm relearning. I'm rediscovering the light that Isadora lit in me. He extended his hand, and Lorena took it, standing up to be by his side. And today, I want to thank Isadora for one more gift she left us. Her sister, who brought healing to our children and to me. The murmuring among the guests was inevitable, but then Aurora stood up, holding a drawing. I also want to talk about Mommy, she said in a clear voice. She taught me that family is love, not just blood. The girl raised the drawing for everyone to see the new family she had drawn, with Isadora smiling from the sky. Mommy said it's okay, she declared with the absolute conviction that only a child can have. She came in my dream and said she wants us to be happy. Valentin joined his sister, bringing what appeared to be a letter. I wrote this, he said, his voice small but firm. Dear Mommy, I miss you so much every day, but Aunt Lorena is taking care of us now, like you asked. Lorena looked at Vincent, confused, like she asked. It was Elisa who answered, approaching with tears in her eyes. In the hospital before passing. The last thing Ms. Isadora said was for us to call you. The revelation hit Lorena like a wave. Her last request, her last will, to call her sister. To take care of the family she was leaving behind. Serena, not wanting to be left out, ran to join her cousins, holding a small pot with a seedling. Mommy said it's a baby tree, she explained seriously. We're going to plant it for Aunt Isa in heaven. And so, under the sun of that perfect morning, the three children planted together a small seedling of a flowering tree, Isadora's favorite tree. A tree that would grow with them, marking not the end of a family, but the beginning of something new. The guests, many of them initially skeptical, watched in silence, moved by the purity of the moment, by the authenticity of the love that emanated from those children. When the little tree was planted, Vincent took the floor again. I thank everyone for sharing this moment with us, for honoring Isadora's memory not with tears, but with hope. That's how she lived, and that's how she would like to be remembered. He paused, turning in the direction where he knew Lorena was. And now, if you'll allow me, I have something to say to Lorena. Her heart raced. This wasn't part of the plan. Lorena. Vilela, he began, his voice firm despite the obvious emotion. You came in our darkest moment and brought light, not to replace the sun we lost, but to show us that we could still find warmth. You helped our children smile again. You helped me find a path in the darkness. He extended his hand, which she held between hers. I don't know what the future holds for us. I only know that I want to find out by your side. Not as a substitute for what I lost, but as a new beginning I never imagined possible. Lorena felt the tears flowing freely down her face. Vincent, Before she could answer, she felt small arms wrapping around her waist. Aurora, Valentin, and Serena had approached, creating a collective hug that united them all. Please stay, asked Aurora, her blue eyes pleading. Forever. You're already our mom here, said Valentin, touching his chest over his heart. It just needs to be on paper. Serena, always practical despite her tender age, summarized, Now we're a family. You can't leave anymore. At that moment, under the moved gaze of the guests, Lorena understood that the answer no longer belonged only to her or to Vincent. It belonged to all of them. That improvised and imperfect, but deeply loving unit they had formed. I'll stay, she replied simply. We'll stay together. The sun shone on the small flowering tree seedling, which one day would be a majestic tree. A gentle wind stirred the photographs of Isadora, as if she too were present, blessing that new beginning. Thus, in the same garden where so many happy memories had been created, and where so many tears had been shed, a new family was born. Not perfect, not conventional, but real and true. A family built on scars transformed into bridges, on absences transformed into new presences. A family that honored the past, lived the present, and for the first time in a long time, looked with hope towards the future.